안녕하세요, 켈포입니다. 3일 전에 IGN에서 진행하는 팟캐스트에 엑스박스의 수장 필 스펜서가 나와 1시간짜리 인터뷰를 진행했는데요. 처음엔 요약본을 만들까 하다가 내용이 워낙 방대하고 흥미로운 이야기들이 많아서 쳐내기가 아깝더라고요. 그래서 그냥 전체 영상을 번역하기로 했습니다. 부분 영상이 끊긴 곳이나 문맥상 필요한 부분은 의역을 했으니 이해해주세요.
As you're working from home, your team's working from home, we're all doing that. What is your typical day like now, trying to juggle all of this, trying to juggle a console plan and a console launch from home on top of it all?
Yeah, I first just want to say to everybody out there, I think we're all living through unprecedented times. The safety and security of all of you, the community, our teams, our customers, primarily important. And, this is not something in all my time in Xbox that I've ever had to deal with, of prolonged stretches of people working from home. It's obviously new for all of us. So there's just a level, I think there's a level of uncertainty in terms of what's going to happen. I get a lot of questions about, what's happening with this date, what schedule is that on? And, the answer I can give, just being honest, is we're learning every day what this is like, in different teams are at different parts in their schedule. For me, because most of my time, frankly, is in meetings and doing reviews on things.
Yeah.
I've been working from home now for, 4 weeks? And I come into my office here, I've got a setup. I started at 8:30 this morning, and here on the West Coast with an ESA board meeting, a long meeting there, as we were looking at E3 and talking to everybody about what we should be doing. And then just spend a lot of time with the teams. But I'll say I'm sure you guys are the same. I miss the time seeing the members of the team.
Very much.
I feel it. We're getting a lot of our team. Like, I have a family here, so I come home, my wife's here, and we can hang out together. But if I lived alone, I could imagine that, work was one of my social outlets, and we don't have that today. So, I think we're all just trying to pull together and get through it.
So before I want to get to a lot of fun stuff with you, but
Sure.
I can't help. We have to talk about the current situation a little bit. You guys have publicly said everything's on track for a fall launch of the Series X as of now, but is there a possibility? Is there a sort of envelope B where if things don't improve, if things go a certain way, where this console doesn't make the launch in the fall?
Well, I'll say the thing I'm going to put front and center is safety and security of the teams. And there's no decision that I will make, or frankly, anybody at Microsoft would even ask me to make, that would compromise the safety and security of the teams for kind of a near-term, either financial or product gain. It's just
right.
The teams are the most important thing. I'd say pragmatically, the supply chains in China have started to come back. I think we've seen that in the news, that China was obviously earlier in dealing with C-19 before it spread. And I think that we can see in the factories and stuff, we're starting to report things back from them, and that's working for us. The two big issues we're kind of monitoring right now, building a video game from home, a large distributed team of hundreds of people is not easy.
Right.
Video games, as we know right now, are big, and there's like huge, massive asset bases that each one of these games have. And how you trend up, I think all of those things are, we're just kind of living. On the hardware platform side, I think I made it public when I had my Series X at home, and I'm using it for testing. As much as I have a great time doing that kind of time with the console is important. And we want to make sure that we've got the right amount of time for the platform tech that we're putting in place to get all the testing done. So we've had to move a lot of that testing in the homes. I'd say things right now aren't easy. I think things are stretched. I can feel it in the teams. They're stretched. We have nothing right now that says we're not going to make the dates that we've been planning. But I'll also say it, as I said earlier, this is kind of real-time stuff, and I'm going to put the safety and security of the teams at the top, along with a quality product. Like, I don't want to rush a product out if it's not ready. So feeling good, but also just being eyes wide open.
Is one of the options where there wouldn't be a global launch and you would limit and do a certain number of territories this fall, if that's sort of all that's possible?
We haven't really started on any kind of plan B, as you asked about. So I'm hesitant to kind of do the what if on this. I will say that having lived through the Xbox One launch, I know that significant delays in region launches hurt us. It hurts us with the sentiment of the fans. And every time I go to Japan, I'm reminded that we were, 9 months late in launching there with Xbox One. And the internet means everybody knows where everything is launched. So it's not like 30 years ago when it was it's just not here yet, and you don't get the roar of people getting excited from other regions. So we haven't started on that plan B, but I'd be hesitant to do something like that. And fundamentally, some of the issues that we have to work through are more software related than hardware. So, and when you're done with software, it kind of scales globally. So I'm not predicting that, but I think, as I said, we're just managing day to day and kind of watching how things are going and watching our productivity. Now,
you mentioned trying to develop the software remotely. Now, Moon Studios was already doing that. They're a distributed developer, but we've just seen some slight delays on both from inXile on Wasteland and on Minecraft Dungeons, moving a month out into May. So is there any sort of contingency plan on the software side? Like if hardware's ready and software's not, would one come, will things just come out as they're ready, or will things kind of stay coordinated and paired up no matter what?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And we're in constant conversation with our third-party partners. They're all learning day to day as well, how their teams are working. I think for us, hardware and system and service software, those two things obviously have to stay linked. I don't want to ship a piece of hardware where the platform's not completely there. I'll just laugh and say maybe we've done that before. We're not going to do that again. So the system software and the platform got to be solid in order for us to do anything. I do think that the overall siryx, if everything was there for the software and the services and the hardware, I don't think I would hold it for any individual game. I mean, obviously the big one you think about is Halo.
I was going to ask.
Iconic with the launch. It's Bonnie and the team are doing a really good job on Halo Infinite right now, and they're staying on top of the issue. They're learning as well, just like we all are. But I think we'll kind of go in eyes wide open on what we're trying to get done. But I don't think we would hold the launch of the overall platform for any individual game. I think we just have to be very transparent with people on where we are and how we're trending, which is something that we've tried to do from the beginning of this platform, and let people know how things are going and giving people real behind the scenes on where we are. And even from a PR perspective, we were having discussions about through the summer, do we kind of up our cadence with our see what progress we're making, because this is kind of an unprecedented time trying to launch a new platform in a circumstance like this.
I guess I know you don't want to play the what if too much, but if the hardware does slip for whatever reason, is there a chance that Halo still comes out this fall on Xbox One and Xbox One X?
Yeah, to date we feel pretty good about our plans, but I'll just reiterate, safety and security team is most important. And I think if we get to the point, I would sit down with Liz Hamron, who runs our console platform and hardware team, and Matt Booty, and frankly, Sarah Bond and the third parties, because there's obviously a lot of great third-party support that we're looking for through the fall. And so I think it would just be a joint effort. I get these same questions, just so you know, from the third-party publishing heads when I'm talking to them. How are we feeling about hardware? I know there's a lot of excitement. And frankly, us and Sony are both dealing with this. I'm sure we're dealing with it in our own ways, but it's kudos to all the teams that are just trying to manage these processes. But I say that also knowing there's frontline medical workers out there that are doing a lot more difficult things than trying to ship games and a game platform. But I do, as I look at the teams that are keeping servers up today, we're seeing incredible demand across the board for games and game services, and the teams trying to keep these projects on track and doing a really good job at that to date. My hat's off to them, because this is something new for all of us.
So Phil, you mentioned Sony. Now, was it the goal heading into this project? We've heard from the siри즈x hardware team that this project was actually started in 2016.
Right.
Was it the goal as it was and clearly turned out to be with the Xbox One X? Was the aim to be the most powerful console, without knowing necessarily what the other guy's doing? And now that you've heard Mark Cerny deliver the first round of tech specs, the kind of overview there, do you feel good about that? Do you feel like you've achieved that?
I think you asked the question in exactly the right way. We started in 2016 not knowing, or even really frankly thinking much about when another platform holder would launch or what their goals would be. So it's really hard to go and create goals that are relative to somebody else in the market, and that doesn't mean that we're not incredibly proud of siри즈x and how that Xbox will exist in the market when it launches. I love the work that the teams have done, but we really try to set our own player goals, experience goals, creator goals for what we're trying to build. We did that with Xbox One X, and I think you and I had the conversation of we really wanted to be able to hit 4K. We thought 4K 30 was reasonable. We get some games that would go to 4K 60, and we get some games that decided to not hit 4K, but we wanted to make sure that 4K was achievable. This time around, for a long time, I've been talking about balance between CPU and GPU without just kind of giving all of our plans, but I've tried to be transparent with the things that we were targeting. We looked at things like refresh rates and frame rates, and we've been on that. We did variable refresh rate on Xbox One so that we could learn and start the conversation with hardware manufacturers. We started the conversation about DirectX ray tracing and how we wanted that to exist on our platform. We started even thinking about the cloud and how this platform that we're going to build is going to be the engine for xCloud going forward, and making some decisions whether it's direct ML and other uses for this hardware when it's in data centers. So it's not really a relative exercise. We give ourselves a price envelope. Obviously, we have to do that, otherwise we just blow the thing up. We did want to hit a certain performance goal, which I've said is why the console looks the way it does. But it isn't really a relative exercise compared to someone else. But it takes a lot of long-term planning. Here we are 4 years later, and we're able to talk about what we've designed all along. And like I said, I'm incredibly proud of the work that the teams have done.
All right. Well, that said, you dodged the second part. Let me rephrase it this way. You watched Cerny's presentation. If I had a microphone on you, what would I have heard? What would the reaction of Phil Spencer have been? Would it have been like, oh yeah, we feel really good, or wow, they really crushed that, or kind of what was your reaction to
No, I felt really good about, no doubt, I felt really good about how siри즈x lines up. And I think Mark and the team did some really good work on the audio processing that they've talked about. Their SSD technology is impressive. We like that. We saw the work that they did, but we took a holistic view on our platform, from CPU to GPU to RAM to throughput, velocity architecture, how latency, back compat. It took us years to get to this point. I mean, even going back to my kind of crazy talk at one of those events down in San Francisco, where I started talking about hardware that might upgrade through the generation and what that meant, which leads us to the ability for you to buy now an Xbox One game that will work in its full fidelity on siри즈x. And so the planning takes a long time. And so I will definitely have respect for any platform team that's launching, because it just takes a lot of work. But I will say, when we finally saw the public disclosure, I felt even better about the choices that we made on our platform, and I kind of expected that I would. I mean, it's the hardware team under Liz that did Xbox One X, I just have a lot of confidence in them. And if I give them the time and the targets to go hit, I just believe in their ability to create a great end-to-end program. And the work that Jason Ronald and the team have done is just fantastic.
Well, you talked about price earlier and having a price objective in mind. I mean, do you worry about your price relative to the other guy at all in the marketplace?
Yeah, so what happens as we get closer? Like if you go back to 2016, what do we want to do? Go to talk to creators, what are they seeing? Look at what's happening in some instances on the PC space and see what technology is going. You have to set a price target at the beginning for yourselves. And then you kind of roll in as you see the competition come in and start to do your go-to-market planning. I feel good about the price that we're going to be able to get to. I feel good about the price and the performance capabilities that we have with siRiezX. I feel incredibly strong about the overall package. I know last week you guys were talking a little bit about Xbox All Access and the way the pricing of these consoles has actually changed a little bit now, with so many people taking advantage of kind of acquiring your console in more of a subscription motion, almost more the way you get a phone as opposed to an all-in-one price. But we're definitely going to be continuing to keep our eyes wide open as we go towards launch. Looking at what the competition is doing. But, we have a plan and we feel very solid about our plan. We think it's a winning plan. And long ago, you and I sat in a room somewhere where I said I wanted to win, and then you got frustrated with me for years about where is this winning plan. And I think I believe we have a plan that can win. We've got to go execute, but I feel really good about the plan that we put together.
Yeah, you said that when that was the first interview that you did with me when you took over as head of Xbox. That's exactly. It's been a long road, and I've talked on this podcast a lot about how I feel like you've done a brilliant job of executing that plan. And I'm sort of curious. We saw 2013, I want to ask you about the lessons that you learned from 2013 that you're applying now. But one of the things that didn't go your way in 2013 was price and a seemingly quick reaction from Sony on the used games thing and your kind of digital messaging at that point. So with regard to price on siRiezX, is that sort of fixed no matter what? Is it just is what it is? Or is there a scenario where you might be reactive to the competition and be able to have some flexibility to adjust your price accordingly if you so desire?
We're getting incredible support from Microsoft. Satya Nadella, my boss, the CEO, Amy Hood, the CFO, they're very linked in to what our plans are. And we're going to make sure we stay agile on our pricing and that we have a good plan going into launch. But I think you hit it right, that there were other policy things around Xbox One and maybe even definitely some focus things in terms of learning, that I don't think it's just about price. I think you've got to have, but I think you've got to obviously be at a competitive price. You've got to have an offering that meets the needs of the customers that you want, and in many cases exceeds the needs of what they expected. And that's where, when I'm watching the response, I feel good about that. But when I think about programs like Game Pass and how important I think that can be in a purchase decision for somebody, when I think about things like smart delivery, when I think about our back compat program and how the best version of your games are going to play on the best version of the hardware, which is not something that's traditionally been true. We're out there kind of breaking some of the traditional tropes that are in the console gaming space.
True.
Because we're trying to put the customer at the center and it's about allowing people to play the best versions of their games, respecting the purchases that they've made with us, even though maybe some of the past business models were, let's go force people to go rebuy all of the games that they own. It's respecting the relationships that they have, the fact that it's going to be a continuous experience across Xbox One and siRiezX, and that experience and the games that you own and things like Game Pass and things like smart delivery and the fact that Xbox Live will be on both, platforms and even more is important. I mean, many people probably forget that when we launched Xbox One, you couldn't talk to Xbox 360 customers on Xbox Live. I mean, we didn't support your digital library when you moved over. You know, we're telling you this was a digital console. The digital relationships and friends that you have, you weren't able to maintain those relationships. You know, you talk about my learning. It's respect the gamer, respect the art form that is building games. And sometimes that means you're taking short-term financial hits relative to the traditional console business. But in the long run, I look at this business as just a business that's growing, an activity that's growing. It's definitely growing right now for people at home. And I'd much rather be a cooperative part of the growth of this business than to create our little walled garden reasons that, you know, our content should only be ours, or people shouldn't be able to experience the games that they purchased from us on the newest hardware that they have.
Right now, I mean, and you've been showing that with backwards compatibility. You mentioned Game Pass. You've really shown rather than just told, which I think has just been fantastic for you guys leading into the launch of the Series X. I did want to ask you though, because this, when we got confirmation of this recently, it hit a lot of gamers kind of hard. We saw an update from Astro saying they're going to work on this. What can you talk about the decision behind? And I suspect it's just space in the box, having watched the teardown. But why the removal of the optical port from the Series X?
Yeah, I was spying on you. I was listening last week with this one. And there's definitely form factor. I'm not going to say. I mean, you said it couldn't be about price. Does play a role. There's no doubt. You know, it's interesting when certain people might know this. I'm a software engineer by trade. That's what I grew up doing.
Microsoft Encarta, yes?
That's right. And so hardware is something that I've become closer to as I've grown in this role. And the thing about hardware is, I'm going to use kind of weird terms, but the marginal cost of everything is important. So if you look at a part on a console that's maybe $1 or $2 and you say, okay, how big of a deal is that inside of a console that's a few $100s? But then you say, okay, we're going to plan to sell, you know, 100 million of these consoles. So you take $2 over 100 million, now you're at $200 million over the life of the program. And it kind of works that way. I mean, and I'm not saying that was the exact math on the optical port. The optical audio port, we had a conversation with the headset manufacturers prior to all of this. So when we stood up and said your accessories are going to work, we weren't kind of walking a tightrope there. We'd already had the conversations. We saw so much of the energies going into so many of the codecs on delivering those either over HDMI or USB. We knew we had a plan there. So there is space considerations, no doubt. We also, frankly, know how many people use it today on the console. So I know you do, you know, but we see it. So we kind of do the math of, we have to put a part in every console that X% of the people use. Is there a better place for us to spend that money if we can support it in a different way? So, but I mean, it's always the decision about HDMI in, decisions about the Connect port, decisions about USB blaster IR blaster on the front. You know, there's all of these decisions are things that we think through very deeply and try to figure out where the plans are. And I know with everything that we don't do that we used to do, there's going to be somebody who's disappointed, and it's not the funnest part of the job, but I think we have to plan for the future.
All right, you're a software engineer. Let's talk some software for a bit. Let's start. I want to start here. I think it's fair to say you and the team deserve some credit for really dragging Sony into crossplay. Isn't that fair? Can you take a little credit for that?
I'm not going to talk about any specific partner there. I will say it kind of comes back to our sentiment. You should be able to play with the people you want to play with. And if we can support that and we can be advocates and champions for that, great. You know, Tim Sweeney's been out there pushing hard on this as well. We think cross-play, cross-progression, cross-buy are things that people should be able to expect in this year. and with the digital kind of currencies and economies that are out there. But yeah, I feel really good that crossplay is growing in popularity. I still don't see it everywhere, so the battle is not won.
Keep fighting it. How has it been working with Nintendo? They're right down the street. You've done Cuphead so far. We've seen Ori, the first Ori. We've seen Banjo appearing in Smash. Can we expect more of that kind of collaboration between you guys?
The relationship with Nintendo is great. Doug Bowser and I, we talk often. Furukawa-san, the CEO of Nintendo, and I know each other well, and we have conversations. I will say that I think the individual IP by IP to different platforms, I can see can kind of get confusing to customers over time. We've been learning. Some of these have been, some of our development partners have really wanted to go do this, and we want to support the desires of our creative talent. So some of this has been partner led, but I think more and more about what does a full Xbox experience mean on different platforms. So that because right now it seems like when any game comes out, there's is this one going here, is this one going there? And I'd rather be able to set more of an Xbox level expectation for our fans on where things are going to go. I thought we did that with our first party when we talked about games shipping on Xbox and PC. And I got some blowback from certain people and certain groups on that, but at least we set an expectation on that. And I'd rather see us get to that point on the different pieces of hardware that we're on. So I guess I'll kind of leave it there. I definitely have a ton of respect for the role that Nintendo plays, and I love having great games on their platform. But I also I don't really love this idea that for every one of our games, there becomes this little rumor on is it going to end up on the Switch or not. And I feel like we should set a better expectation with our fans than that.
Fair enough. Ori, we kind of touched on Ori and Moon Studios a few minutes ago. Where do you guys stand with them? Because you've had a wonderful relationship. They just shipped their second incredible exclusive with you, but they are not one of the studios that you own or have acquired. So do you anticipate working with them more in an exclusive capacity, or are there talks of acquiring them outright? I'm kind of curious where you stand with them.
Thomas is right here. We're kind of the ton of respect for the working relationship with Moon, watching them grow as a studio in the you and I both know it's been years that we've worked together with those guys. And Ori is fantastic. It's a game I just love in so many ways. It's kind of a perfect game for me. Nothing to say about the future relationship and where that would go. They're an incredibly talented studio. I think they could basically do anything that they want to go do next. We love having them on Xbox, and we love the work that we've done together, but nothing really more to talk about there.
Fair enough. I got to try. It's my job, Phil.
No, it's okay.
What is the strangest place that you've played, you've used xCloud in so far?
So I was in Nairobi, Kenya, and I was in one of these little painted buses, small buses that are used as kind of cabs. And they had a Wi-Fi router that you actually had to earn. You had to watch some ads to earn credit to get out of the local hard drive. They had stored content on the hard drive. So I was able to do that. And this was way back in the day before we had data centers globally. So I'm sitting in Nairobi with my phone, routed through London to Quincy, Washington, bringing up Crackdown. To be clear, at kind of like 2 frames per second. But the fact that I actually could get him on screen and move around, I thought was just fantastic. And it was amazing. Like everybody in the bus wanted to come around and see what I was doing. But it was great. And it just gives me a lot of promise for what it's going to mean as we find these great games and stories and characters that you and I have grown up with, and we're able to bring those to more and more of the world. I think I definitely believe in the social power of gaming. I think gaming bridges social boundaries and brings many people together, creates interactions that wouldn't exist in any other space. And I'm encouraged by our industry's move to bring more and more people in.
So I think there's been a lot of I've seen a lot of relatively negative sentiment around Stadia thus far, but it seems more optimistic around xCloud. I think you guys have done a good job of kind of defining it, but if you can kind of clarify, like, is it with you talk all about cutting down latency in all forms with Series X. Is xCloud going to be used to help me maybe like start playing a game I've bought instantly while the local copy downloads in the background? Kind of what are some of the secret sauce things that you have in mind for xCloud that are going to make the experience better?
I am not a fan of the secret sauce words and like sentiment. I won't go there. This kind of idea that there's something beyond the physics and the software that makes these things work, I find kind of funny. But I think the xCloud scenario on a console makes a ton of sense. Like one of the things we're seeing in xCloud today in the preview, which is going, like you said, incredibly well, and we have like hundreds of thousands of people playing, it's awesome, is we watch people sample games. We see that in Game Pass already, even on console. We call it the hummingbird effect. People are just willing to kind of try more games, but obviously you have the download time. And so on xCloud, you definitely get people who are sampling a lot more games, and I think that's healthy for our industry. I want more different kinds of games played, more creators found, next new favorite games. This should all be part of it. So yeah, I think the ability to try more games more quickly is an interesting thing. I don't know if you looked in the xCloud preview app, the team did some work around these, I think they're called play stories. I'm forgetting the name right now, where you're watching the trailer for the individual games in the xCloud app, and you could click through and start streaming the game that you were watching the trailer for almost instantly. And I thought, the discoverability of new games get methods like that, whether it's on a console, PC, or a phone, I think should just be fantastic. We can do that with music today. We can do it with music, with movies, TV.
Right.
Giving that same kind of instant access to games makes a ton of sense. We're big fans of that. In terms of latency, you talked about it.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've never done is speed of light still exists. When you're sitting in front of your console connected to a TV, the signal is literally going either over a wire or wireless from your controller to that console to that TV and back. And this world where, on the internet, there's a lot of work we can do to shorten the latency. There's no doubt about that. But the best experience you're going to have is playing on a local device. Like, I think we've been pretty consistent in that. We're not trying to replace playing on a PC. We're not trying to replace playing on a console. We think for some people, they'll never own a gaming PC or a console, so this could be the only way they play. But not because we say, hey, this is somehow, from a graphic fidelity standpoint or a latency standpoint, superior to what you're playing on your console or PC today. So the thing I love about what the team has done, I think they've been very level setting on what this experience is and what it's not, and not try to overblow it.
You touched on E3. You said you had a big, long meeting with the ESA. Everybody's kind of trying to figure out what does E3 or June look like. How sort of thrown into chaos have your rollout plans for Series X been on kind of a messaging and marketing side? Because quite frankly, I've talked about it on Unlocked. I think you guys have done a tremendous job of being very clear, very transparent, and giving a ton of information so far. But if we go back, to 2013, you guys there was a sort of hardware unveil in May, and then June was games. So what is the plan, and is it disrupted, and kind of what is the messaging kind of look like over the rest of the year from a general perspective?
Yeah, we made the decision as an ESA, as the board. We all got on and made the decision about what we were going to say about E3, and when we canceled E3, that was a hard decision for all of us. I know and at that time we didn't know that. Sitting here at the beginning of April, end of March, that we'd all be working from home and have been for many weeks. So I think you have to plan as you go. And from that decision to today, things have definitely changed. I even go back, like for us, we had Austin out and Richard and John out to do the Digital Foundry work.
Yeah.
And that was actually right at the beginning in Seattle, at least, of some of the work from home. We're kind of lucky we got that in when we did, because I think if it would have been 4 or 5 days later, it would have been much more difficult for them to fly in and out when they did. So we were lucky we got that in. When we're looking towards E3, the team is working on plans. And frankly, we're learning how doing things like this, doing things virtually, can work. You know, the GameStack Live stuff that we did as our replacement for GDC went incredibly well. We had millions of people tune in to see those things. So we're just trying to continue to learn as these things are happening. I do think that the plans have changed. You know, the team's ability to get assets done, the way they were going to get assets, gameplay or trailers or what they were going to, that's been impacted. And we are rethinking what those plans are about. But I think you know me as well. I'm a fan of what E3 has stood for. I love the press briefings. I love the kind of condensed nature of that time. I don't know that as an industry we'll be able to hit it in such a kind of tight-knit 3 or 4 days and like bam, bam, everything's hitting. But I do think we've got to continue to make sure that we're giving fans the information that they want. And we've got a lot more to say between now and launch. So we'll do things between now and the time where E3 was supposed to be. We'll do things throughout the summer. I think we're just going to look at how teams can get stuff ready and how we can use digital formats to best deliver experiences to the fans that we have. Because I think that's just the most sane way to do this.
Do you feel like you want to have kind of talk about any more? I guess, is there anything left to say about the hardware, or is it kind of games from here on out?
We definitely wanted to do the beat we did with the unveil a few weeks ago to make room for games. Like, we know games are what people play. You don't play variable rate shading. You don't play ray tracing. You play the games that use those technologies, and those technologies make games better. But the games are what are going to get people excited. This is one of the reasons we had Hellblade when we did the unveil at the Game Awards, and I thought showing up to the Game Awards without a game would be a little tone deaf to the audience. So, you know, that as we're definitely going to be leaning into the games talk now. I do think there's some more stuff for us to say about platform, about services. I'm excited about those things, but a vast majority of what we want to talk about going forward, and frankly, our third parties want to talk about as well, is the great games that people are playing.
I guess, yeah. When can I pre-order an Xbox Series X, like officially? When is that going to happen?
No, the pre-ordering will we don't have a firm date for that, but it'll come later. You know, later in the summer, I think you should expect that.
Just shifting gears quite a bit here. I still hear from fans on of Xbox and Unlocked on IGN side, and I'm sure you do too. There's still a lot of love out there. There's this real passionate pocket of love for Scalebound, and people think it's going to come back. Somebody's going to bring it back. Maybe is Platinum. Maybe Phil's going to go buy a Japanese studio. They're going to get this. So can you kind of address that cancellation once and for all as to sort of this what happened there? Where and it's is it done? But there's help these people out that are passionate about this video game.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Because I have a ton of respect for Platinum, Kami-san, the team, and I feel no ill will. And we talked to those guys. Like, there's no animosity between the teams.
Right.
We tried to go do something that, and it didn't work. And I regret that we were as public about what we tried to go do. I mean, you and I have talked about this before. I did some learning around Fable Legends. I did some learning around Scalebound, about being public about things before I kind of know that we've got a real believable plan and something that I've felt in my hands and I know is going to be there. And we just didn't get there with Scalebound and with the team. And I say that across both teams. So I think what you hear, at least when you hear the teams, us talk about it, is we love some of the ideas that we were trying to go do. And obviously, we wanted to be able to ship a great game to our customers. I mean, that's every time we start a game, that's our end goal. So of course, we're going to be a little upset that we weren't able to deliver on our goals with that title. We're not working on it. I'm not at Platinum today, but I'm almost positive they're not working on it. It's something we've all moved past, and it's not a moment that I see as a high point for me in my role, having to cancel a game that we had talked about for years. But yeah, for the people out there who are kind of thinking that maybe there's something still in the works, there's not.
Well, I appreciate that. And at the same point, you've talked in the past about not wanting to show games too early, like at E3 in particular, and whereas other companies might show things that are further out. But now you've got 15 first-party studios, and most of them new ones, and you're about to launch a new console. Does that thinking relax or change for this year? I mean, are you going to kind of just go empty both barrels, and we're going to see some further out stuff to really get an idea of what the new portfolio of Xbox Game Studios looks like this year?
Yeah, the roadmap has never been stronger as I look forward. I mean, even over the next, you've talked a little, even over like the next 6 months. I mean, it's a little crazy how many games are coming out. And in the diversity in those games, I mean, you go from like an Ori to a flight sim to Gears Tactics. I mean, it's Minecraft Dungeons, Tell Me Why. Like it's a strong lineup. I will still say for Matt and I, that when we show something, we understand how we get from that announcement to the launch of a game. And I mean, things could always happen, but we understand what the game is. We understand how it's work, and do we have the technical and kind of production capability to finish the creative vision that we have. So we're going to definitely make sure we tick those boxes before we show something. That doesn't, I think it will lead us, I think now with more internal teams to be able to show things that are further out, because it is just, regretfully, it's a little different internal teams and external teams. The internal teams, you kind of know them a little bit better, and we own all the resource planning and everything for those teams so we can plan. So I think coming into this, we know we want to show more. And frankly, we have a lot more to show. I mean, Aaron Greenberg and I were just doing the math with Matt and trying to figure out what is the next show that we would have where we would not be announcing a new game. Is kind of hard for us to predict, because when you have that many studios. And I'll also shout out to our publishing team. They obviously just shipped Ori, great game, doing Tell Me Why with Don't Nod, which is awesome. And our publishing team's our first party organization that works with independent studios to ship games under our first party brand. And we have some unannounced signed things there that we're really, really excited about. And that team's really found the rhythm in terms of how they're working on these games and getting the quality into shipping. So I'll just say that you're going to hear a lot more from us in the game space. I know I've been saying that for a while, but it's just the math now says that we have to announce things almost every time we're on stage, new things. Otherwise, like, we're going to have shipping games without ever announcing them.
Well, I know you're not going to announce games specifically right now, but I'm kind of wondering if I might find a way to get you to speak a little bit about your thinking behind the day one launch lineup of Series X. Obviously, you're kind of erasing generations by design. You're bridging the gap, but at the same point, we know Halo Infinite is scheduled to be the big day one launch lineup. I have long assumed, as many Xbox fans have, that Turn 10 will join that day one parade as well. But I'm curious, are you trying to set it up where there's a significant amount of first party release or first party support on day one, or is it kind of the one or two heavy hitters from your team and then filled out with third party support?
More important to me is that we've got a coming that people they know about, they're excited about, and they know when they're coming. And this will sound like blasphemy when I say this, but I actually think, like, on Xbox One, you can argue about the quality, but I think we maybe had too many games that were all falling on the same day. And I think it doesn't really help somebody to have 8 games launch on one day. And I think you can pace those out. Obviously, people can buy games when they want to buy them, so it's not like everybody has to buy all the games on the first day. So I know having an incredibly exciting launch lineup is important. So that's important. But I also think being transparent about what's coming, when people can get excited about, making sure that the teams have the time to get the right game done. Shipping a launch game, you know this because you've been doing this for a long time, is very difficult. So there's certain games that you could give them a couple more months and maybe they're not there right at launch, but they're able to get the game done that they wanted to get done. And I actually think for the momentum of the platform, it's not about any one day. It's about a sustained stream of great games coming from our first party and our third party partners. I'm way more focused on that.
I think a great example of exactly what you're just saying is was the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. It was supposed to be a launch title for the 360, didn't make it, comes in March, and it just sort of hit that second gust of wind and really helped carry the 360.
Or Titanfall on Xbox One. You know, I think there are examples, and as long as you're communicating with your customers about when those games are going to come and what you're trying to get done. And that's not to take away from being incredibly excited about launch and building a lot of buzz. But I think that's the thing that has durability over time, is a great collection of games coming at a regular cadence. Of course, I'm going to pitch a little bit on the Game Pass side, giving you an easy way to have those games and get to try them and see if they're the right game for you. I just think that's a really good equation for customers coming into Xbox.
This one's for me. So, I'm sure you're very happy for Ted Price and the Insomniac team with them going over to Sony. But hey, for me, we never got that Sunset Overdrive 2. So what I seriously want to ask you is, was that like the right game at the wrong time, or can you speak to, because I still feel like that is right at the top of the list for all-time Xbox One exclusives.
I do too. I wouldn't say it's the wrong time. I think there are, as the person who was in charge of the platform, I think there are some really good games that shipped on Xbox One that at the time didn't find their right place in kind of gaming lore because they got caught up in a lot of the noise around the platform, some of the questions that people had.
Right.
And I don't love that. And I think a lot about that as we go forward. I think Sunset Overdrive is a great game and people should go play it. The fact that Ted and then the great team at Insomniac ended up as part of Sony, I'm happy for them. I did a podcast with Ted at DICE and we remained really good friends, and I wish him incredible success there. So I'm a studio person at heart, and anytime I see a studio getting to success, I'm happy for that. But I'll even go back to like Rise. People have talked about Rise. I thought Rise as a launch game for Xbox One was a beautiful game. There's some depth of combat stuff. I can't help myself from getting into my kind of studio's mindset. But just as a launch game to show off the graphical fidelity of the console, I thought the Crytek team did an incredible job. And some of those games did get caught up in some of the noise around our platform and how many Ps do we have and TV stuff. And it's cool to see as time's gone by, and I think a lot of platforms do this, where people will go back and I'll identify things that maybe at the time felt noisy, but then after all that noise dies down, they're remembered for being really great games. And it's why our back compat program is so important to us, because there are games where they actually find their audience later, and for many different reasons. And I think it's important for us that we continue to give those creative pieces in our industry room and areas to find new players that maybe missed them when they came out. It's why going all the way back to the original Xbox is important to us, and the games that we want to see there, and the 360 back compat and the full compatibility with our Xbox One library. But it's, I can think of games like Eternal Darkness on the game.
Sure.
Did it get enough of a buzz when it came out? And then you go back and look at it and some of the things they did and deleting your save game and all these kind of things that make you freak out about playing. It's I think there's some games that shipped on Xbox One that 3 or 4 years, even today, that get higher marks than they did, not review score marks, but just higher notoriety in the industry than they did when they launched. And I'm glad at least that they get to that point.
All right, my favorite Phil Spencer tweet from recently, which I need to ask you about here. You visited the Initiative in Santa Monica, and you said, incredibly talented studio challenging themselves to do new things, and then in parentheses, and old things, smiley face. What did you mean by that, Phil Spencer?
I just meant Daryl's kind of an old guy. No. I'm not going to talk. I won't say too much about it. You know, it's there are very few instances where you get to build a studio from scratch.
Yeah.
We did that with Turn 10. I think you know that.
Oh, yeah.
That we built that studio from employee one and built it up. And this is another opportunity to get to work with that incredible team. And it's just cool to see them coming together. A lot of veteran leadership in that studio. But I will say, and I know this is not the part you're asking about, but they're challenging themselves to try to do things in some different ways. And I think that's just really great to see. And they're going to be very open about how they're doing it, because they think it's something that they want to share with the community and the industry as they do it. But yeah, I can't wait to get to show what the initiative is working on.
I mean, I guess that obviously, you know where I'm driving at with this, is that there's the speculation now in the community of, are they working on a new game with an existing IP? Are they doing something new? I would imagine it for you and Daryl and that team. It's got to be a sort of a strange but good problem to have, is trying to figure out, well, what do we do? Do we dip into the perfect darks or the this or the that Microsoft has, or do we just start fresh on a blank sheet of paper?
Well, I listen to you guys debate it amongst yourselves on the podcast, and certain people want them to go do something new. Certain people they also want us to bring back games from our past. And I heard about the Coalition, bring back Shanghai, which was never a code name for any game at the Coalition, but the versus having them do Gears. You know, I don't know that it's 50-50. The balance between new IP and games that people love in our portfolio is something that Matt and I spend time on. And it's why when we're doing new things like Tell Me Why, that we get excited about those things, or we get to bring back things like Flight Sim. I know that's kind of a big leap from where we are with the initiative, but you know, having that mix so that people, those emotions that you had in playing those games, feeling those games and what they were about, but bringing up to modern standards with new sensibilities and design, while also exciting people with brand new things that people have never seen before. I think the mix that we have coming up that we're going to talk to people about is really strong there. And it's something we spend a lot of time on. And I think in the end, you need to ship a great game. And if you ship a great game and it was an IP that people knew or have heard of, that works. And if you go and create something new that's awesome, that also.
All right, real quick. I know we got like 1 or 2 minutes left. Tim Saray has tweeted publicly. He and I chat. I've been keeping a very, very close eye on The Last Night since it was revealed on your stage in 2017. That game just captivating. When a studio like that and a creator like that talks about, oh well, we've had some funding challenges, we're trying to get everything figured out and get this game done. Do you pick up the phone in a situation like that? Do you kind of feel like, can you help in a situation like that? What do you make of it when you see something like that?
Well, first, building video games is incredibly hard. Shipping games, I tell all my teams, any team, shipping a video, expose things the team can, because it's a creative artwork that's just going to it gets played and it gets reviewed and it gets analyzed and dissected, and the game can't defend itself. It just kind of sits there as an inanimate object while people kind of go after it. So anytime I see a team that's in some distress or have some issues, it always hits me. I'll say, like, as somebody where we sit in the industry, we know about those situations before they hit Twitter. And if we're in a position to go do something, I mean, I guess it's been out there, so it's not like, if you look at Studio MDHR and kind of how and the length of time and the funding, that was a thing where, we had a relationship with the team. We didn't let it get to the point where it was on Twitter and somebody was looking for help.
Right.
So most of the times when I get these kind of like, I'm buying this or somebody else is buying that, or there's somebody out there who's in distress. If we could have helped and it worked for us, we were probably already in there. It's rare that it happens on Twitter that we find out about something, almost never does. Because the industry, I mean, they all know our phone numbers. So before they tweet out something, they would give us a call. That said, every once in a while, I learned something about a new situation and I'll reach out. Usually it's on a policy thing. If somebody comes and says, hey, I really don't like this about what Xbox does. And if I don't know the person, I'll reach out. I've had a lot of really good conversations there. But yeah, it's rare that we'll do kind of a financial save because of a tweet, because we're usually already in the conversation before it gets to that point.
All right, let's end on a softball here. I'm just gonna groove you one right down the middle. Just smack this out of the park. Have fun with it. We talked a little bit about new IPs, old IPs. What's an IP in the portfolio that you would personally, you're not saying that this is going to get made, just something in the portfolio that we haven't seen in a while that you would like to see brought back as Phil Spencer, the gamer?
Mech. Mech's easy. Like, I just think the whole Mech, from a right standpoint, it's a little bit messy. There's some other people working on games. But when I think about Mech Assault, and the IP that Jordan created with FOSSA, Jordan Weissman,
yes.
When you go to like Crimson and Shadowrun and Mech, and even more, like it's just really deep, really rich stories and characters to go play in. And I think it would be really cool at some point if we could do something with Mech. Obviously, I'd pick something we're not working on right now, just so I'm not kind of teasing something. But yeah, that's a pretty easy one for me. Because if I go from Commander to Warrior to Assault, like if I could take the whole stack and go, I just think there's such an amazing, rich place there for somebody to go and create. Maybe someday we'll find all the rights will line up in the right way and we'll get to do something. How about you?
I like that you had a quick you had an immediate answer. You didn't think about it. I like that. That's straight from the heart.
What's yours?
I have to say, as a long-suffering Splinter Cell fan and a fan of stealth games, I would probably go Perfect Dark at this point, just because stealth games have all but largely vanished. We just don't get a lot of AAA stealth games anymore. Mark of the Ninja was a favorite of mine on the 360, and we haven't had Splinter Cell in like 7 years, and Metal Gear is for all intents and purposes done. So it's stealth, and Perfect Dark's a good fit there if it ever works out.
I like stealth. You should go talk to WB about doing No One Lives Forever.
Oh, that'd be good. Well, Monolith is busy making licensed, Lord of the Rings games now. I think they're making a little too much money doing that stuff. So, what are you gonna do? They're in your neck of the woods. You go see it.
They're right up the street. Yeah, I like those guys a lot.
Phil Spencer, this was a real treat. Seriously, thank you so much. Let's not let it be 3 more years again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Again, everybody stay safe. Do what we can. It's amazing to see how people are using gaming right now, and physical distancing is keeping us apart. The social distancing seems to be as close as ever on gaming. We have so many people playing. As an industry, it's not an Xbox comment, just all across the board. Everybody stay safe. Continue to use games is a great way to connect with your friends and your family.
Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox. Look for the Xbox Series X this fall. Hope everything's on schedule, all goes well. I can't wait to get mine. Phil, thank you. This was Unlocked 437, and we'll see you back here next week.